The problem is Miss Reed runs on the platform that she's tough on crime. I'm analyzing whether she's effective on crime, and even if she isn't tough on crime, when you have 39% conviction rate for indecency with children cases, that's not tough on crime. There's a problem there. And then when you mix that with the high recidivism rate and the highest number of child abuse cases in the state of Texas, well then you see that when looking at the report card, unfortunately she's just not effective anymore. And so I wouldn't be running if I didn't think that something was broken.
In the primary, Teresa Hunsinger raised some serious questions about whether your legal background actually prepares you to be the chief prosecutor with all these felony cases.
Sure.
Based on your experience being, I believe, exclusively a misdemeanor.
That wasn't, and I love Teresa, you know, and she's a friend, and I still call her my friend. That wasn't accurate then, and it's definitely not accurate now. As you guys know, it was reported, we just finished trying the biggest white-collar case that I think this DA's office has ever prosecuted, and we got an acquittal on all 4 counts. It was initially a 5-count indictment, a very complex white-collar case. And then a month before that, we tried an ag robbery case where we got an acquittal on that as well. And so that's just within the last 6 months. I mean, so I'm very, very ready, and I'm very capable of trying felony cases. I don't think a judge in that courthouse, or a prosecutor for that matter, will argue that fact. And I know it sounds good, and that's what she wants to make it seem like. I've tried close to 150 cases over close to 12 years.
One of the controversies during her term, this current term, involved pre-trial diversions for certain people, but then she changed her policy somewhat.
It's an ineffective policy.
17 to 21, I believe. What's your attitude about pre-trial diversion, and what would your policy be?
I think it's effective. Here's the deal. People want to change the tools to use to get our justice system working. Just learn how to use the tools in the toolbox. The pretrial diversion is under the government code 76, chapter 76, right? And so it allows an office, when it's appropriate, to make an assessment and to put someone on pretrial diversion. Here's the distinction why hers is not effective. Number one, there's an age limitation. There's nothing in the code that says there has to be an age limitation. Why should it be from 17 to 21? What about the 50-year-old or the 60-year-old or the 42-year-old like I am, who lived a good life and has been a productive member of this society and has not been in trouble at all, and they made a poor choice in their life, and it's a non-violent offense, and we can get them back on track. I deal with that all the time. But they're not eligible. Other counties, they are.
Would you discuss your personal views on the death penalty and how you approach capital murder cases as a DA?
Bruce, you know my story, right?
Yes.
So I've witnessed the death penalty. I've actually witnessed an execution when my brother was taken from us. August 15th is his anniversary of 1996. I believe in the responsible use of the death penalty. It should not be used for political gain. The last 4 times, and we'll put 5 because there's a not guilty in there, the last 5 times that Susan Reed has sought the death penalty, a jury has said, Ms. Reed, you did not assess this case properly, you have wasted our tax dollars, and this was always a, not a death penalty case, non-death, life case. In my brother's situation back in 1996, Bruce, and you and I spoke about this last time, life was 40 years. Now the statute has changed. Life is life. An individual that is sentenced for life will pass away in prison, unless there's some type of pardon. So that gets a different dynamics, right?
Can you address juvenile justice and how do you feel about that, and the certification of juveniles to stand trial?
When you say juvenile justice, they kind of do things differently over there. I don't know if you've kind of looked into that. This is what I want to do in the adult system. They kind of get involved on the front end. They bring rehabilitation and probation on the front end. We do nothing, zero, while we're on bond waiting for trial to do anything on the adult system. What they do in the juvenile system is a PO gets involved, probation officer gets involved initially. Before you're adjudicated, before you can still go to trial, but you're working on whatever the issues are, and it's not used against you later on. That's effective. So regardless of what happens to that case, dismissal, plea bargain, or trial, you've already worked on the home environment with parents, co-laboring together, bringing people into the fold, and then working on the child themselves and trying to figure out what the issue is. They're not doing that. I mean, you got someone on bond for 3 or 4 years. Whether the case is legally sufficient or not, or what's going to happen, there's no reason why we can't do something on the front end to start bringing some rehabilitative measures in place. We got to stop that 75 to 80% repeat offender rate. It's not only not fiscally responsible, but it's not effective for community safety.
That when the DA was here, it sounded like he was going to return to whatever she said last time.
I know
And
her.
that whatever you might want to talk about in the way of issues within her office, she's kind of parked on, you know, talking about your history. So are you going to treat that any different this time? How do you approach that?
Okay, I can't change it, right? I'm not proud of it. I'm very proud of the man that stands before you. I believe in redemption. My faith tells me that. Our justice system is set up for it. If she's going to run on the fact of what happened 21 years ago now, over 2 decades ago, I think that screams the fact that she is afraid of her report card. She's afraid of statistics. I'm licensed in the state of Texas. I'm licensed in federal court. I have a concealed handgun license. I'm not a convicted felon, no matter how many times she says it. It's just not a fact. So we'll talk about 20 years ago, but then I want to talk about the last 20 years. And what I've heard from the community is they have some concerns about an attitude that says, hey, do as I say, not as I do.